Hello and welcome to Media Mastery Show. I'm Aldwyn Altuney, and today I have a very special guest with us all the way from Brisbane. Her name is Mary Wong, and she is Optimal Life Solutions CEO. Mary's been training internationally in speaking and leadership for 15 years and founded the Balloon Principles speaking system 2 years ago. She runs presentations and workshops throughout Australia, and she has a huge vision, which we'll be talking about today. Hello and welcome, Mary.
Hi, Aldwyn. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. Now it's a very interesting topic we're going to be talking about today, is speaking out, because as you say in your bio, there's a lot of deep thinkers, innovators, and people with bright ideas who do not feel empowered to speak out. Of course, you work with those people to help them share their wisdom, which is fantastic, and also to change the world for good, which is part of your big vision. And in fact, that's exactly what we were doing on Saturday night, weren't we? We were helping to change the world for good at a Cambodian women's hospital fundraiser.
Yes, that was an awesome night, wasn't it?
It was fantastic, and great to see that you're supporting so many great causes. So how did you start on your journey of I guess coming to the point where you're a speaker coach now and helping people speak up? How did it start for you? Were you ever challenged speaking up personally yourself?
I was actually. As a small child, I didn't have a problem speaking up. I was very happy to speak up. In fact, I spoke up a little too much. I think that was the legacy of being the youngest of 6 children on a large property. So we had to be loud or we just weren't heard.
Right.
And then as I grew out of that, went off to school, that wasn't appreciated generally by the teachers for some reason. They didn't like someone being loud and precocious in the middle of their classrooms. I don't know. Personally, anyway. So that resulted in a bit of bullying and stuff like that going on, which sort of, they tried to keep me quiet that way. It didn't necessarily work. And then when I was about 11, I had one of the boys at school who decided he was going to protect his sister. She and I were friends and we used to walk home together and talk to each other. She didn't talk to me at school, but she did on the way home. And he decided he was going to protect his sister from the bullying by threatening me with guns, threatening my life. And in the upshot of that event, the next day when I was pulled up in front of the principal with this boy to discuss what had happened, I was asked where it had happened. And it had happened at the gate to his house. And I said on the street, because the gate to his house was on the street. And he said in the house, because he had made me go into the house with the guns. And when the teacher said, well, he says the house, you say the street, which is it? And I said, well, it started on the street and then I had to go into the house. And I was branded a liar. And what came from that as an 11-year-old, the lesson I took from that was that you don't speak out because no one will believe you. So for a lot of years, I didn't speak out. It didn't mean that I didn't speak up. I still spoke. I still functioned at a certain level, but I didn't let anyone see my truth. I didn't let anyone see what was inside of me and who I really was for a lot of years. And that resulted in a lot of difficult times for me. There were a lot of things that happened to me as a young girl that I possibly could have stopped by speaking up and didn't speak out. And yeah, a lot of nasty stuff happened along the way there. So yeah, I was scared of speaking for a really long time because of that experience. I was afraid to let people see who I was. And yeah, went forward a lot of years like that, still functioning, and that's what we do. We still function even though we have other baggage, and I still functioned and went forward until just after I had my second child, when I ended up with a postnatal depression. And that postnatal depression led to me going and getting some treatment, some therapy. And in the course of that therapy, I I spoke to the therapist about other things that had gone on in my life. It took a little while to get to the root of what everything had come from before I opened up about that, because it had never been spoken about. In all those years, I had never, ever told anyone about what had happened after I was told that I was a liar, because I didn't think anyone would believe me. And yeah, after she did a whole lot of treatment and things on that, I've been able to talk about it since then. But up until then, I was in no place to talk about that or to talk about a lot of other things. So after that treatment, I then went and studied counselling and business and coaching. I was also involved in a not-for-profit organisation which trains in speaking, and through that journey have learnt to open up and to share my truth and speak out honestly about who I am and what I believe in. And it's the most beautiful, empowering space to be in when you can share who you truly are, when you're not afraid of hiding anymore. You're not in hiding anymore. You're not afraid of speaking. You're not afraid of being seen. So definitely recommended behaviour from my point of view.
That's an amazing story you've got there. And for people that are maybe scared to speak up, because public speaking is one of the highest fear factor things that people can do out there, and it does absolutely horrify some people. Like they say, some people would rather be in the box than reading the eulogy at funerals, for example, which of course we don't want people to be at that point. But if people are really, really scared, how can you help them through that, or what are some things they can do to move through that?
Well, the very first step is to find how to become calm. And in my Speaker Startup workshops, I actually go through various tips and strategies that help you become calm when you're in a space of fear and anxiety. One of the biggest things that you can do, and I'll share this right here and now as a nice startup tip, is to breathe. Breathe really deeply, right down through your heart into your diaphragm, so that your stomach's actually going in and out, not your shoulders going up and down. It makes a big difference when you breathe down deeply. You need to do it at least 3 deep breaths. I recommend 5 to 10 deep breaths. And what that does is it actually helps to settle your adrenaline down. It's a physical reaction through the parasympathetic nervous system that settles your adrenaline levels and helps you to think more clearly, to be more calm, to shake less, slows your heartbeat back down a bit, all those things that happen to people when they're afraid, and particularly when they're about to get up and speak in front of a crowd, when you know the heart's going and the face goes red and you start to stutter and all those sorts of things that happen when you're nervous of speaking. The first thing you can do is that deep diaphragmatic breathing, minimum of 3, because the parasympathetic nervous system doesn't switch on with less than 3 breaths.
And so breathe in and hold for how long, and then breathe out?
So it's just, you don't have to hold your breath, you just breathe in deeply, breathe deep and out, and in and out, about that pace, and do at least 3 of those deep breaths, but I recommend more like 5 to 10.
Okay.
So that's the first big tip.
That is a great tip. And of course, you are a very big advocate of Power Talk as well. There's people that go to Toastmasters. I've been to Toastmasters for 3 years and attended a Power Talk and really loved it, I must say. So can you let us know a bit more about Power Talk as well?
Sure. Well, Power Talk Australia is a part of an international network of clubs, and these clubs meet usually about twice a month, where they have a meeting for about 2 hours that's programmed, and the people who attend, who are members of the organisation, get to participate in that program at various different levels. You can start doing something very, very simple, like standing up and reading a quote, for example, so a very minor, small assignment, right up to doing training 90-minute workshops. Generally at club meetings, we would probably go up to about a 30-minute rather than a 90-minute. But because the organisation is a national organisation, we also have state level meetings and national meetings at which you do, again, higher assignments and larger trainings and so forth when you're growing through your practice. But it's a very supportive group. It's a very safe space to come and practice your ability to speak. It is a not-for-profit, so it's not political or religious or any of those sorts of things. Those types of things aren't something that we actually allow people to do there because of the not-for-profit regulations. But you can come along and practice programmed assignments. So that might be a speech, perhaps a speech to inform or persuade, or current event speech or entertainment speech. So many different types of speeches. And the really, really exciting thing is there's people there who give you beautiful feedback that encourages as well as helping you to understand where the next step of that growth should lie. So what's the next thing to do to get even better at what you're doing? And there's always feedback because we're always growing. It doesn't matter how far along we are in our speaking journey. There's always something that you can find to help someone to get even better and even more polished as a presenter. So that's the evaluation section where you get that feedback. And then the other fabulous thing, and this is particularly great for people who are in business and are in a position where they need to be able to answer questions really easily and comfortably and look like they have authority, because there's nothing worse. I know people who really know their stuff, but when they're asked a question, can't answer it fluently. And that makes them look like they don't know what they're talking about. So it's really important to be able to do an impromptu response to a question. And that's one of the things that we do as well as a routine, as part of our Power Talk meetings, is to give people the opportunity to answer a question that they didn't know was coming and practice that ability to give an answer straight off the cuff that's fluent and authoritative and sometimes even really entertaining. We have so much fun at our meetings. Some of the stuff that people come out with, just makes you roar laughing. It's fantastic, but roar laughing in a good way because they meant for it to be funny, not because we're laughing at anybody. We only laugh with people, not at people. It's a very supportive and safe space. So yeah. But I love it. I've been in that organisation for 15 years. I've been up to the president at the national level. I, even did some international roles in a couple of previous terms. And yeah, I absolutely love this organisation. I credit it with a lot of my confidence growth that's happened over the years, because the stepping up and getting sorted with the things that happened to me isn't just about having treatment from the psychologist. It also was about being able to have a space where I could go and be open and be myself and do it in a safe space, because when you've got a fear, you need a safe space to start stepping out of that fear.
You need to really practice it, don't you? You need to practice.
Yeah, practice makes perfect. always, and it works for everything. But whilst I use the word perfect, no one's ever perfect, but that's the way it's meant to be. We're not meant to be perfect. If you look at a field of beautiful flowers, it might look like perfection, but if you go up close to those flowers, you'll see there's petals missing, there's flaws in each flower, and that is still perfection. It's the way it's meant to be.
And the beauty is, for anyone watching this who is a little bit nervous, that anyone who's any good at anything was bad at it once, right? So if you just keep at it, you will get better and better. And personally, I've done a lot of different speaker training over the years and literally invested tens of thousands of dollars into different courses. And I have done your courses, Mary, your workshops, and I learned more in your beginner's workshop, or different things that I didn't know from other speaker trainings that I've invested tens of thousands of dollars in. So I can highly vouch for your training. I think you are brilliant with what you do, and you're able to really help to clarify people's message as well. You help with clarity, and I think what you do is quite different to Power Talk. I think it's quite a different kind of training. And maybe if you could just explain a little bit about the difference with, say, your workshops. Why should people come to your workshops? I mean, Power Talk could be great to a certain level, but then why do people also need your workshops? What's different about that?
So Power Talk, for me, the way I see it, the Speaker Startup Workshop is particularly geared towards people who are fearful, and it's helping them get past that fear enough so that they can take the next step of going somewhere like Power Talk to have that supporters practice space with an audience. I don't provide people with an audience as part of my workshops. I provide people with the skills. So with the Speaker Startup, it's to get them comfortable enough to go and use the audience and get that feedback from the audience. Then the next level with my professional presenter course is going into a deeper level of how you can connect with your audience in a way that really helps every person who's a member of your audience get an understanding of what it is that you're wanting to share with them. Because people process information in different ways. And if you are able to understand the basic manners of processing, the way that people's thinking preferences work, and if you have an idea of, just by talking to someone, the sort of stuff that I do, by talking to someone, you can get an idea of what their preference is just through listening to the cues that they give you. So once you have that idea, you know how to give them information in a format that makes sense to them and that really piques their interest, which is what you want to do. If you have an audience who's not the slightest bit interested in what you're talking about, we all know what happens. It's like, so, which none of us like to see when we're presenting something. So
Yes.
Being able to really read that audience so that you can connect with them on the level that gets them totally engaged and really learning what it is that you have to share, but doing it also in a way that's smooth, that flows, and has a structure that makes sense, and using things like story, but at the right percentage, at the right portion. If you use too much story, it becomes just a self-indulgence. If you don't use enough story, it doesn't engage anywhere near as enough, and it's not near as much, and it's not as memorable. So it's finding that balance between all of those different things and structuring it in a flow that's easy to remember, that's a simple flow, that leaves your audience begging for more, because that's what we want to do. We want to leave our audience wanting to know more and to hear more about us. Yeah.
It's quite an art form. It is quite an art form to do that. And I must say, I love the process working with you on my presentation. I do a workshop on how to gain $1 million worth of free publicity. And recently I rejigged that whole workshop with you, Mary, and it was a fantastic process just to go through the flow of the slides and look at, was this slide really necessary, and, actually looking at the story and getting concise with the story. It was a really great process, and you seem to have quite a natural knack for it, I must say, Mary. You're very good at being able to fine-tune a presentation for people, I guess, that are running workshops, as well as I'm sure you help people if they want to do a talk at a wedding, for example.
Yeah, actually, I just got asked last night. I'm very honoured that a friend of mine who I've known for a long time, her daughter, called me last night and said, "You're the best speaker I know. Would you MC my wedding?" And I was like, "Oh, isn't that lovely?" So that's going to be a new experience for me. I've not MC'd a wedding before. I've certainly MC'd events and MC'd lots of different things, but MCing a wedding I've not done, and I'm really looking forward to that. So that's in March next year. Wedding too. She's an Italian girl, so it'll be a big wedding.
A lot of food. Prepare yourself.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
That's lovely. Really nice. And so back to the how to speak out is what we're talking about here today. How to speak out and live your truth. So what are some other tips that can help people speak out? We talked about breathing.
Yeah, breathing, standing strong. So I think one of the the biggest secrets to all of it is to first understand and have a really clear understanding of who you are and what you're about. When you're not sure of that, when you're sort of wandering around a little bit lost, it's very difficult to formulate a message that is clear, that makes sense. So spending the time doing the work on yourself, getting a clear understanding of who you are and what you're about is really important to getting that clarity of message out to your audience and to being able to stand firm and stand strong in your vision, in your understanding of what it is that you're trying to achieve, to be able to get your story together. We've all got story. Every one of us has got story, even those of us who think that we have nothing special going on. And I really quite enjoy in my professional presenter workshop working on people's story with them. I always take someone out the front and work on their story with them. And every single time I do it, that person has a really magic moment where they just go, wow, I never realised how much power there was in that. Because our stories for us are our personal experience. And whilst, I talked about my story earlier and I had a big incident, not everybody has a big incident. Sometimes it's just a series of little tiny things that just make them go, oh, I've gone from there to here, but I can't really tell you what the turning point was. It doesn't matter. What matters is what is really important to you and what it is, the message that you're trying to get out to the world. If we work on your story, we will find a way to make that story connect with your audience. And once your story really connects on a deep and resonant level with your audience, your engagement with them grows and your ability to be remembered grows as well. So that's one of the things that I really work on to help people communicate their vision, is getting their story clear and putting it together in a way that serves the presentation that they're doing, because there's so many facets to every one of us. It's not, I could tell you stories till the cows come home about me and different things that I've done, but most of it wouldn't be relevant to you right now. So what's the point in sharing it right now? So save some of it, and that's a trick to learn too, is how to save bits for later, for other times. And so they're really important things in getting that presentation sorted and getting that message across, sharing your vision, speaking your truth, being prepared to talk about the things that aren't so pretty. Like I said, I didn't talk about what happened to me for many years. I didn't talk about it for over 30 years before I had the treatment for it. And that was something that it damaged me. Not speaking out, not being able to share who I was, did damage. And that damage took a long time and a lot of work to heal. When you are able to be open about things that have happened to you, are able to be open about who you are, and you're not hiding any part of you, there's a pressure that comes off. It's like you're in a pressure cooker until that happens, and any moment the steam valve could suddenly go psh. But once you've been open and you're prepared to let people see you, warts and all, for who you are, that pressure goes. And it's a peace that comes, a peace where you can just be you, authentically you, where your message is no longer mixed up by pain. It becomes really clear. Your purpose becomes really clear once you have done that work and worked out exactly who you are and talked about what it is that you want to create in the world, because we're all here to create something. We've all got a reason for being here, I do believe.
Yeah, I agree. And so with the term live your truth, some people might not know exactly what their truth is, or maybe they're not aware of it. So how can they be more aware of what their truth is?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of self-development type things that you can do to help to come to that point where you understand your truth. I absolutely recommend seeing a coach and having someone facilitate with you so that you get a really clear understanding of what is most important to you in your life, what you value most. Once you understand what your values are, a lot of other things just fall into place. What's most important becomes, and once you start to live in alignment with what's most important to you, your truth becomes a whole lot more evident. When you're trying to be someone you're not, when you allow society's pressures or other people to pressure you in, excuse me, sorry,
Okay.
to pressure you into doing something that isn't you, that isn't authentic, that isn't real to you. If you, for example, so this is a very rough example, but for example, if you're pressured into having family and you really, children aren't important to you, for example, and you're pressured into having family because it's the expectation of society, that can really, you know, create some really, really sad spaces for people, spaces for the children as well as for the parents. It can become a really tragic situation, and there's way too much of that that's playing out in the world right now because people had children because they thought that was what they were supposed to do, not because they really wanted to do it. And that's one, you know, one example. So once you understand and have a clear knowledge of what is it that you value most, and then you look at your life and go, okay, does this serve, what I'm doing, serve and fit in with what these values here are? And if, you know, if they're bouncing off each other, then you've got to be prepared to make some changes so that they can interlock like that and it all fits together. And that's one of the biggest things to finding your truth, is being prepared to do the work on you. If you don't do the work on you, you'll never know who you are. You have to do the work on you. You have to be prepared to get down and dirty in the trenches with yourself and face those things that you're not comfortable with. Because until we know who we are, there will always be things that make us uncomfortable about ourselves. Once we recognize who we are and accept ourselves, because we understand how those parts of ourselves serve our higher values, that's when we start to really move forward.
Very good. I saw a coach actually this morning, and she said, you are like God. She said, we are like God. We are extraordinary beings. We don't get how powerful we are.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't love themselves. They don't appreciate themselves. And they have a lot of negative self-talk. Now, if they've got negative self-talk when they're speaking, that is going to be very detrimental, right?
Yeah.
So silencing the mind is very important, right? So
Yeah.
what are some strategies? Breathing, you mentioned a few other things. Do you have any other strategies around silencing the mind when people are being self-conscious or they've got a million conversations going on in their head? So what are some things they can do to stay focused?
Loads of them. Loads of them. There's one that I do in my Speaker Startup, which is a mindfulness exercise that helps to draw you down when you're in extreme anxiety. So when you're in extreme anxiety, you get all these different thoughts in your head and you're sort of out there. And this one I do helps to bring you back in and settle you and calm you, and plus leaves you with strength and a sense that, you know, you've got this, you've got the strength, you're made of steel, if you like, and you can move forward. That's a really great exercise. It's one that might put your listeners to sleep right now, though. So I'll probably leave that one for now and tell you to come along to Speaker Startup to learn it. But there's a couple of really fantastic, quick little exercises in mindfulness. And mindfulness is a beautiful, beautiful thing, because when you are in the moment and very mindful of what's going on around you, it stops all of those other things that are going on inside here. The reason that we we want to do that is that once we calm that, there's, I'm not saying that right. Once there's things around us everywhere that are so beautiful, that are so, we can really get lost into. And if we really focus on those things and spend time really getting into that place there, it just stops this from going on, the stuff that's in there from going on. Other things you can do are things like, that was an interesting thought. Thank you for that thought. Now, as a thought, that's all it is. It doesn't mean it has to control me. I can decide whether or not that particular thought has any bearing. Does it? No, not really. Well, thanks for that thought. Off you go, thought. I'm going to choose to think differently. And we can have those sorts of little conversations with our thoughts. And, you know, it might sound a bit silly, and probably does when you say it like that. But you can have those conversations inside. And I'm doing this, which is probably not a good motion to use, because when I was a kid, that meant you were a bit lulu, didn't it? But when those thoughts go on inside your head and you want to calm them, there are strategies that you use. That's just a strategy. You can also use an interruption strategy. You can go, stop, breathe. Right, let's start that again. So if the wrong thought's coming in and that we know that that's a negative thought, we can get rid of it by saying, all right, I'm going to stop that thought right now. Stopping it, take a deep breath, right, let's start again. What was I doing? How else could I think about that? And then reframe that thought into something positive. Now, reframing is something that can start with something as simple as adding yet. So I'm not good at this. Could change to, I'm not good at this yet. And you feel the different energy there. Simply by adding yet allows you to open to the possibility that you could be good to it. You could be good at it. So I'm not good at it yet means I will be. So that's the first step. If I'm not good at it is something that you see as a truth, that's the first step to changing that truth. And to changing that to, I'm not good at it, but there's a possibility I will be. And then I have challenges with this. Rather than I'm not good at it, I have a challenge with this. And what's a challenge? A challenge is something we get up and give a go to, isn't it? So having a challenge with something is great, because that gives you energy and it gives you fight and it gets you ready to, let's get our teeth into this and do something with it. So yeah, so then a reframe from I have a challenge to I'm getting better at this every day, until eventually we get to, you know what, I've got this, I can do this. And I believe that going from I'm not good at this to I've got this, I can do this, is often too big a step for people, that they need to do smaller steps on the way through. There's a rare few people who can just bang and snap straight out of something into something else. But the majority of people are not going to believe their thoughts if they completely flip them over into complete opposite. So put it into steps.
Yes, absolutely. Everything's achievable when it's broken down into bite-sized chunks, as they say.
Eat that elephant one bite at a time. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, people do get overwhelmed sometimes and procrastinate when things can seem massive. Like, so for example, building a website could be a big task for someone, but the very first step is opening your laptop or starting your computer, right? And then going through, okay, what's the next step? So just breaking it right down makes it all very achievable. So I really like what you said there. The reframing is brilliant. And I also like what you said there about being present. Now, I've heard a few times recently that when people are in depression, they're thinking about the past. When they're in anxiety, they're thinking about the future. So the practice to be mindful of as much as possible is to be present, which can be challenging. I've found that incredibly challenging myself, because I have oscillated between depression and anxiety a lot in my life. So being present is really important. And another thing I've heard a lot is that people don't communicate, they take turns talking.
Mm-hmm.
That's another great one. So being present and being a good communicator is also about being a great listener, right?
Yes.
Yeah, very important and also if you're speaking to crowds, actually, really, I guess, feeling the energy of the room, really listening to what your people are saying. I guess with the same presentation, it can be presented so many different ways depending on the types of people you've got in the room. So then being able to adapt, being able to adapt to the different audiences.
Yep.
So, for example, I spoke recently, I spoke about how to get free publicity at a Rotary conference recently, which is a very different crowd to, say, speakers and authors. There's a very different energy in the room. So being able to work with that is, is an interesting art form in itself. However, that would be, I guess, more advanced strategies there.
Well, that's one of the things that there's two things that I talk about when you're putting together a presentation. Well, there's four things, but there's two things that are above the line, and the two main things that are above the line, and one of those is who are you talking to? Because it's so important that what you share connects with your audience. If what you're sharing isn't relevant to them, then you're wasting your breath. So if you can find out some information about your audience before you're putting your presentation together for them, then you're one step further ahead. The thing that the idea or the concept that when you're speaking it's about what you have to share is wrong. When you're speaking, it's about what gift you can give to your audience, what's important to them. It's not ego-based at all. A lot of people have this idea that a speaker is some big celebrity, and that's not the way it works, not in my world anyway. And I find that connecting with your audience and having that understanding, and this is sometimes a reframe for people too, having that understanding that what you're giving them is a gift. It's not your speaking that is a gift, but what you're giving them is a gift. It's something that should be useful for them and really pertinent and helpful in their lives. And if it's not, you haven't made that connection, you're not serving them at all.
Yes, so being of service is really important. And the other thing people stop themselves a lot with is they say, I don't know enough about this topic to speak about it. Whereas if you know 10% more than someone else, you can teach something, right? So you don't have to know everything about a topic to be able to teach it. You just have to know a little bit more than some other people to be able to teach it. So what are some other ways people can overcome negative conversations with themselves? Because I know this is a massive thing, and I keep coming back to mindset, because mindset and speaking are so aligned, I guess, particularly when it comes to speaking the truth.
Yep.
Actually getting real with yourself as well, isn't it? So any other tips there around that, around combating that negative mindset that can happen sometimes with people?
So there's the reframing, there's the positive, there's gratitude. Gratitude is enormous. If you can find the gift, when things go wrong, and they do, life just goes wrong sometimes. It's messy, it's different, but it's different for everyone. And sometimes things just go wrong. If you can look at what's gone wrong and find the lesson in it, find the gift in it, find the joy in what's actually happened there, then you're going to be 10 steps forward in your journey immediately. I know that I grew up with a victim mentality of, this has gone wrong. Oh, poor us. What a terrible thing that's happened. This has gone wrong. But once I came to the understanding that in every cloud there's a silver lining. Once I came to the understanding that there is a gift in everything that goes wrong, there's a gift, whether that gift is a lesson about how not to do it next time, which it can be, or it can be because this went wrong, then that happened, and then this happened, and if I'd kept going that way, something terrible might have happened there, or would have happened there. Whereas because that went wrong, I diverted my path, and now where I've gone has turned out so much better. I look back at the things that have happened in my life now, And you know, some of those things, like I said, were quite traumatic. And I look back at them now as great gifts, and I recognise how much they've given me, how much I grew through the pain that I went through. So being able to understand that pain is a gift, that pain is a gift that will help you to grow, really changes perspective and changes your mindset, changes the way that you look at things that happen in life. I say to people that without darkness, there is no light. I say to people without bad, there's no good, there's just ordinary. And I say that regularly. I actually have brought my children up on the philosophy because, you know, oh, it's a really boring day today, Mum. And I said, well, if you never had a boring day, how would you know when you were having a fabulously exciting day? It would just be normal.
Yes.
Imagine how boring life would be if that was the case.
That's true.
Yeah. You've got to embrace both sides of it.
Yeah, it's the yin yang of life, they say, isn't it? You know, it's love or fear. You're coming to things from a loving space or from a fear-based space. Yep. And sometimes a little bit of fear can be okay because you face the fear and you do it anyway. So, for example, on Saturday, I did a Warrior Within program at the Stunt Academy, and I did some high falls into a bag, a 5-meter and 7-meter high fall. Now, when I first went to do the high fall, I was quite petrified. I'd never done a high fall before into a bag. I mean, what if I miss the bag? I mean, what if I land on my head? What if, you know, there's all this fear can come up. So the first time I did it, I was very nervous. And then second time it became easier. Third time it became easier. I did it forwards. I did it backwards. And I actually started to really enjoy the process by the end of it. But there was definitely that fear there. And I broke through the fear and then it became easier. So I guess it's like that with speaking and with anything. Definitely. That we may fear.
Well, that's what the balloon principle is about. The balloon principle is about rising through facing that fear, through understanding that we all start off flat, and that expanding and growing and facing that fear as we start to take off is the same for everybody. We all face that as we learn and grow. We start off with unconscious incompetence where you just don't know what you don't know. And then you realise there's something you don't know. And that's got conscious incompetence. And that is a really uncomfortable space to sit in. So that's the space where you have the choice. Because you can't go back to being unconsciously incompetent. Once you realise you don't know that thing, you always know that you don't know that thing. So your choice is, do I sit here and stay uncomfortable? Do I avoid the thing altogether? Or do I go, you know what, it's time to move forward, and you work on it. Then you can become consciously competent where you still have to think about it for a bit, but you can do it, and then eventually get to unconscious competence where it becomes really easy. And that's when you're really starting to fly high. Your balloon principle follows along that trajectory of the exponential curve where there's a lot of, you know, not going very far to start off with. And then when you finally face that fear, boom, up you go, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I love your balloon principle analogy. And you have a personal story around that too. Would you like to share some of that?
I do. I was always terrified of heights. You know, I'd grown up in the country, and we were quite remote from town. We weren't very well off, and we didn't go to town very often. And even the country town that I grew up in, I remember when I was there was one 3-story building. The rest of them are all flat. So going up high, you know, really wasn't something you ever did anyway. And I was always a bit scared of heights. So I remember going nursing when I was 17, and I had to go up onto the 4th floor because the 4th floor was the top floor and the brand new nurses were right up the top. I think that was supposed to keep us safe. I don't know. But we were right up the top, and I couldn't go out on the balcony of the 4th floor because I was too terrified. There were girls sitting on the edge of the balcony swinging their legs over, and I couldn't breathe looking at them. I was so terrified. So heights has always been a bit of a thing for me. And a couple of years ago, we were in South Africa on a family holiday. It was 2015, we were there. 2016, sorry, we were there on a family holiday. And spouses sometimes do things that you that you kind of go, what did you go and do that for? And my darling, adorable spouse decided that he was going to take us up in a hot air balloon. Now, as somebody who found the fourth floor balcony daunting, I dare say you can understand how I felt about that. And I have a photo of us in the balloon before we took off, and I'm standing there like this, and I can tell you it's not a smile. It's a grimace. I am terrified. And the worst part about it, because he was saying, oh, come on, we'll take the kids with us. And we asked the kids, and they were like, oh, no. And I said to him, oh, listen, darling, you know, it's a lot of money. If they don't want to go, let's not waste the money on them. They can pay their own way when they're bigger. But really what was going on in here was, oh, crap, I don't want my children to see me in a fetal position curled up on the floor of the balloon screaming and yelling because I'm going to be terrified. But when I got there, what I didn't realise, and I probably would never have even gotten on the bus to get there if I'd known this, was that being curled up on the floor wasn't an option. The balloon's actually divided, and you were stuck in this little divider. There was myself and my husband, and we were jammed in there. There was no room to move. In fact, when it was time to get back out, I had real trouble being able to lift my leg enough to get my foot onto the foothold to climb back out. That's how tightly we were squeezed into this thing. So we were forced to stand up. And yes, and so standing there in the balloon going, practicing my deep breathing and my mindfulness, trying to keep myself calm. And then there was this horrendous roar behind me. I had no idea what it was, and I turned around and it was the gas burner burning the gas and, you know, starting to fill to make us go up. And didn't realise that we'd actually left the ground, turned back around, and we were already about 10 feet off the ground. Had a bit of a turtle, breathed in tight and went, oh God, can I do this? And then started to recognise just how peaceful and beautiful it actually was. And that fear that I'd had, that terror, not just fear, but that terror that I'd had was pretty much unfounded. I mean, yeah, we could have still fallen out of the sky, but that wasn't very likely. And we floated, and I allowed myself to be mindful in that moment, to really experience that sense of floating so peacefully and so beautifully, and came to the realization of what a beautiful, amazing, magical, majestic experience it was. We were able to sit up there and look down, because we were in South Africa, we were over at Pilanesberg National Park. So we were able to look down and see, you know, giraffes and rhinos. We saw a brown hyena trotting across the ridge. It was just magnificent. The only fear I had after that was when we were coming into land, because there were these guys with big guns, and we were sort of going, what's going on here? And they said, oh no, it's okay, don't worry, it's just because there could be lions in the bushes and we don't want any of you being eaten. So, so then I had a different thing to concern myself with. The things my husband puts me through. I was actually really, really delighted, and in fact, so delighted and loved the experience so much that on Saturday night at the event you were mentioning earlier, I purchased in the silent auction, and I was the winner of another hot air balloon ride. So my husband and I are going up again, and this time it was me who bought it, not him. So that's how beautiful it was. So it occurred to me, reflecting on that a couple of years ago after it happened, it occurred to me that that's pretty much the same sort of thing that happens with things like speaking. When you're caught in fear, I put that experience off for many years. I had in the back of my mind an inkling that I would love to do it, but as soon as the thought would come in, the other thought would come in. Oh God no, that's too scary, I can't do that, you know. And I put it off for years, and then once I actually did it, I realised that I had been holding myself back from something really beautiful and a really special, wonderful, heart-expanding experience that I'd just been going, no, it's too scary, I can't do it. And a lot of people do that with their speaking. They hold back. And I reflected on that, and I thought about the different stages of the balloon inflating, and I thought about the sense that went with it, that sense of, as the balloon is flat, of being empty, of being unable to achieve what it is that you want to achieve, because you just don't have the skills, you don't have the hot air in you, you don't have that potential. And then as it expands and it starts to fill up, there's a sense of potential. There's this sense that, oh, maybe we could do something with this. Maybe it's a possibility that we can go somewhere from here. And then from there, as it gets up to that point where it's right up and it's ready to go, and the guy ropes are down and it's still tied down. It's ready, but some little thing is holding it back until it's right to launch. And then when it's right to launch, that little thing, that last little string gets let go. And up you go and you start floating. But not only do you start floating, you leave those ropes out, don't you, for a little while. You leave those support mechanisms in place. You hold on a little bit to that, what if it goes wrong? What else am I going to do if this all goes wrong? And then eventually you realise that, you know what, I can do this. I've got this. I don't have to panic about it going wrong. I can cope with whatever situation I'm in. So you pull up those guy ropes, and that's when you really soar. That's when you really get that opportunity to go out and share and make that difference, because I really, really do believe, and you said something about it in the introduction, I really do believe that there are people in this world who have the answers that we need. They've got those answers. Right now, they know what it is that could help us get out of various situations that we're in, but they're not ready to share those things yet, because they don't have those skills, because something is holding them back from sharing. And if they could just go out and share their message, if they could just tell the right people, and if they could just speak to the right audiences in a way that engages that audience and gets buy-in from the people around them, then they can really make the difference. They can really change this world and change the things that are problems for us now, and help us to grow and move forward in a positive way. And what a legacy that would be to leave. To me, being able to share a message with impact and with credibility is a way that, and to have the power of that message, to have a really powerful message, combines to the ability to leave that legacy. And I'm excited about what I can do helping people get to there. It's what I base my whole business on. It's my passion.
Yeah, great. Well, there's a few little words that were just cut out there a little bit, but I got the general message there of what you were saying, and it really is helping people share their message, is what you're saying. You're very passionate about helping people share their message, making a positive change in the world. And particularly, I love what you say here, that the difficult part is the deepest thinkers are often the quiet ones who keep to themselves. They don't like to speak out, not seeing themselves as leaders. They hide their light and voice, make little or no impact. So you're out to really shift that. And you say here also, none of us have all the answers, yet all the answers are available. So I guess the first step is just seeking some answers and just recognizing that actually you can be a leader if you choose to be, right?
I believe everybody's a leader. I believe that every person has a leader within them. And the thing is that if we all have that within us, perhaps not in every aspect of our life, but in some aspect of our life, we lead. Somewhere in our lives, we lead. Whether we as the parent are leading the children, whether we as the coach are leading the client, whether we as the referee is leading the game in the way that it goes. There's somewhere in our lives for every one of us where we're a leader. And if we allow ourselves to embrace the personal power. Now, when I say power, I'm not talking ego. I have a different understanding of the word power to what a lot of other people do. So when I talk about power, I'm talking about that empowered soul, that allowance of letting ourselves be all that we can be and not holding back. And when we allow that sort of power to shine, to go out and really shine out into the world, we have the opportunity to make big differences, to make big changes, and really create a world that's, I'm not going to say that's worth living in, because the one that we're living in now is really worth living in, but a world that has, a far more positive future, a far more exciting future for our children, for the next generations and the generations after them and the generations after them. And I've got to say, the kids these days are phenomenal. They blow me away with what they can do and what they come up with, and they're so switched on. I am excited for our future simply because of how clever these kids are. But if we don't share our wisdom and help those kids to get in that space where they can step up wisely, then that's where big mistakes happen for them, and we're on a precipice where it could all go one way or the other. And I want it to go the right way. I want it to go the way that's positive for us, for our planet, for our children, and that's the legacy that I want to leave.
Yeah. And not everyone may aspire to be running workshops or speaking to thousands of people. However, really the skills that you're teaching, people can use just in their communication with their families, or or small gatherings. I mean, the fact is, we're speaking all the time to people around us. A lot of people don't think they're a public speaker, but actually we speak constantly to people.
Yep.
So just even being able to effectively get across a message to those small group around you or to your family, or being able to just have a straight conversation with people. I find a big challenge out there is so many people beat around the bush instead of just saying what it is they want to say, just speaking through, whether it's interpersonal, with friendships, relationships. And it would be fantastic if people did speak their truth, if people actually said exactly what was on their mind rather than beating around the bush. Imagine the world would be like if people just spoke their truth, and you can do it.
Well, how many times?
About it.
Yeah, how many times do you hear someone bitch about someone, or moan about something and go, oh, if only that person would do this? Well, go and ask them.
Yes.
How hard can it be? And then they're like, oh, but I don't want to ask them because they might not, blah, 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 or, and it's like, well, stop whining about it then. You have the words, you have the ability.
That's right.
Sometimes there's a particular structure that needs to be used. And I do quite a bit of work with clients about difficult or crucial conversations. I've done my crucial conversations training, and I do work with clients in situations where they have difficulty having particular types of conversations, and help them to be able to communicate that message with tact, diplomacy, a bit of credibility, and help the other person to understand where it is they're coming from in a way that has the other person going, oh, okay, I get what's going on. And to make it, but to still have it as a two-way conversation, as a two-way communication. It's not, I'm going to just vomit all my information on you and expect that you will just take what I'm giving you, because sometimes when you don't like something, there's something else at play that you haven't realized. So if you just go and vomit your opinion on top of something, on top of someone, you don't always find out what's going on the other side. And then if you find out if you do it in the right way, you find out the rest of the story. And when you find out the rest of the story, you might be going, I was wrong about that. And I really see that as a big part of communication as well, is being prepared to say, you know what, I was wrong about that. Thank you so much for sharing that information, and I'm really sorry to have gotten you wrong. I really appreciate you sharing that with me and helping me to come to that understanding. Thank you. How hard is that to do? But instead we let our egos jump in and play with us and mess things up. So it really does make it very difficult when that happens.
Yes, and we want to be right. We want to be right about our opinion, whereas really it's just an opinion and judgment. Often we judge things and judge people without actually knowing the full story. So actually being able to open a conversation in a friendly, non-confronting way with someone and saying, you know, getting clarity around something. You know, so many people hold on to things for so long and then they just explode. Or there's that saying too that the truth hurts. You know, some people don't want to hear the truth. Well, that's your truth in sharing what you know about something. It doesn't mean it's the whole truth. Nothing but the truth, so help me God. You know, it's not like that. But you know, it's actually getting perspective, as you say, really important to look at things from other people's point of view as well, and actually
absolutely, and stop being addicted to being right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things that makes you so much more credible as a leader is being prepared to say, okay, I got that wrong. I'm human after all, and being prepared to embrace that ability to get things wrong, and to look at diverting opinions, to look not just to converge and bring people together, but also to allow that divergence, allow people to talk about and to open up with, okay, this isn't exactly where you're expecting it to come from, but what about this? And sometimes the best, most creative and brilliant solutions come from looking at something you don't want to know about. I know, you know, I spent 15 years, and there's something about 15-year time periods for me. I spent 15 years as a fashion designer. And when I was doing that, one of the things that I recognized that was quite often the best designs came from mistakes. If something went wrong and you had to work out, how can I fix that? Sometimes that was where the real genius happened, was when you went, I've got to fix that. Okay, how else can I do it? And something really different would emerge. And it's the same with any type of creative problem solving, is that sometimes when it goes horribly wrong, that's when it's actually on its way to going beautifully right.
Yeah. Yes. And in fact, mistakes could be viewed as learning experiences. And they say also that after every breakdown, there's a breakthrough. So I guess, you know, I often look at life like a roller coaster ride, and it's just staying on that roller coaster with all the challenges and all the, you know, facing the fear and, you know, coming to things expansively in a loving space and trusting that, you know, you're on the right path, or that you will be on the right path when you search for that, for you, of course, whatever the right path is for you. So just, you know, enjoying the ride, enjoying the journey of this amazing life that we live, and learning from everything. We're learning all the time, aren't we? I mean, if you think about our life, it's so short compared to eternity. You know, we're all learning and growing as we go, and it's all about how do you deal with what life throws your way, or what you attract into your life. How do you deal with it on a day-to-day basis? And communication, really, and speaking out and living your truth, I think it's absolutely crucial for everything else that you do. It's like the foundation of everything you do in life.
And I'm actually been doing a bit of work lately with some of the younger generation who've been using text messages and emails quite happily, but have forgotten how to use their words in a conversation that actually communicates what they're feeling and how they want to get a message across. And they're finding that, you know, it's not as easy to do when you add all of those non-verbals in, because communication is not just about the words. And when you've got to sit in a group with someone and work out how to make your body back up what you're saying, or make your vocal tone back up what you're saying as well, because if they're not all in alignment, your believability just drops, your credibility plummets. So it's making your vocal tone and your body language back up the words that you're saying. That's really, really important.
Yes, absolutely.
So
and particularly
the young ones who texting and not speaking are suddenly finding that, oh, the world's not so easy to navigate when you're not using all of your communication.
They're using technology but not using their body. And so there's a lot of social anxiety that's happening nowadays. I know particularly on the dating sites, you know, and on the social media, a lot of people are forgetting, or maybe they don't know. The young ones particularly probably don't know how to communicate properly. And it is an art form. It is a skill that needs to be learned.
Absolutely. Yes.
You know, to be able
so as you said, it's not just about presentations. It is also that one-on-one. It is also that understanding that the person you are talking to, whether it's one person, 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, makes no difference. They still have to be able to get what it is you're saying and to understand and connect with you on that deeper level. And, you know, it's a beautiful thing to understand. Do I have time for one more tip? It's a beautiful thing to understand that our bodies are hardwired to connect with other people. There's actually a part of our brain here that senses what other people are feeling and seeing. It's not just what we used to assume was intuition and that only certain people had it. Now we know that physiologically everybody's brain's got this little spot in it that helps us to connect with other people. And if we understand that, and we understand that our ability to connect with other people is based on us giving out a love type energy, and that energy is sensed by this little spot in your brain rather than a distrust type energy, which is also able to be sensed by that same space, and that other people's brains will match where you sit. So if you're giving out that love, the love comes back to you. So it's that old biblical phrase, as you give, so shall you receive. So if you give out trust, you get trust back. If you give out distrust, well, that's what you get back. And that's part of that, making that connection when you're talking to people, whether it's a single conversation or a big group. It makes a difference.
Yes, the law of reciprocity, it's also called.
Absolutely. I love that word.
Reciprocity. Yes.
Great word, isn't it?
And if you trust, the trust may not necessarily come back from the person that you're trusting. It may come back in other areas in life. So I guess not being attached to it looking a certain way with certain people too. If you're standing in your truth and speaking your truth, then, you know, others will I guess deal with their truth in that moment. And I think that's really important to, you know, to stand in whatever it is you believe and be open to other ways of viewing things too, not be closed-minded as well to how others think and behave. And yeah, there's so much we can talk about on this topic. So we've talked for about an hour now. So I'd love to know, what does the future hold for you, Mary?
Well, I've got a book being released in September. I've got another book that's hopefully being released before September.
Right.
And I was having a conversation with someone this morning and realised that there's a third book in there as well. Oh my heavens, I don't know how I'm going to keep up with them all. But yes, there's all of that. But I'm also speaking internationally later in the year. In September, I'm touring through the UK with the Fearless Women's Summit, and doing that also in October through New Zealand and Australia. My workshops are continuing to go around Australia as well. My business is growing. I've just recently bought a property and we've renovated it, and they're working out of there, and I now have my own workshop space, in my own workspace as well, but in Brisbane I have my own workshop space now, which I am loving, absolutely loving this space. It's great. You're seeing a tiny bit of it behind me here, not much of it, but yes, it's a fabulous space to work from. Yeah, life's exciting, the business is growing, and there's so much going on. My head spins sometimes, but I'm loving every minute of it, and I'm continuing to work with. I have an amazing client in Africa that I work with, who has a not-for-profit over there, and we're getting him set up as a charity organisation in Australia. He's going to be touring here in October as well. I'm hoping to set up a couple of pretty amazing events while he's here to raise money for him and his charity as well, which will be speaking events, good news speaking events. So I think that might be a little bit up your alley, Aldwyn. And, yeah, so there's a whole lot of really exciting, great stuff going on, and wow, if I hadn't learnt to be me, if I hadn't learnt to speak out, if I hadn't learnt the skills that I've learnt in speaking, if I hadn't let go of the pain and trauma and chosen to live and to move forward, I wouldn't be doing any of it. There was a time when I didn't even think I was going to be here for much longer. And instead, I'm living life, and I'm living a full life, and I'm loving everything that I do. In fact, I'm probably loving it too much because I end up doing too much. But I absolutely love it, and it's such an exciting space to be in.
Brilliant. That's fantastic.
Oops, I think I've lost you.
Oh, I lost the last thing you said. I could see your mouth moving, but there was no sound. So what was the last thing you said there? I thought there might be a delay in the internet or something. What was that? Just the last thing you said there.
It was, I love it. I love the whole thing. It's fabulous.
Yes, brilliant, excellent. Oh, look, it's been such a joy chatting with you, Mary, and so exciting to see what you're up to, traveling all over the place, running workshops, and they are absolutely brilliant. And once people see you in action, they will know what I mean by saying that you really are phenomenal. You have quite a gift, really, to help people speak out and live their truth and get clear on their message. And there's so much that wisdom that you can share, and I highly recommend for anyone watching this to get along to one of Mary's workshops if you can. So if people would like to join you, Mary, where can they go?
Optimalcoaching.com.au, or look on Eventbrite and search up the Balloon Principle. You'll find the Speaker Masterclass events, which are made up of speaker startup and professional presenter. So if you go into the masterclass events, you'll see different levels of ticketing. One's the morning session, that's speaker startup. One's the afternoon session as professional presenter, or the masterclass is the whole day. I'm in Rockhampton next week. I'm at the Gold Coast. No, Rockhampton this week, sorry. Rockhampton this week, Gold Coast next week. Yeah, lots happening.
Flew back
at the end of the month in Hobart.
Only just you got off the plane and you went straight to the fundraiser for the.
Our flight was delayed too, so I literally got off the plane less than an hour before I was due to be at the fundraiser. So it was a big rush, but it was an awesome event. That was such a good night. I was so happy for them. They raised over $10,000, which was really exciting.
Yeah,
it was great.
Fantastic. So any final words of wisdom before we wrap up, Mary, for anyone watching this?
Yeah, if you're hesitating, just do it. Just do it. Just take that first step. And, you know, if the far goal is too scary, set a short goal and go, and remember, start with yet. I'm not doing it yet, or I can't do it yet. That's okay. But take the step, because if you stay where you are, you're not going to ever do it. And doing it's worth it. Absolutely worth it.
Yes, love it. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you for being our guest today. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and I know we could chat for a few more hours easily, so maybe we'll do some other installments of this interview down the track and get some updates on how you're going with your books, or maybe when the book comes out we can get another update. So love to chat with you down the track. Thank you so much for your time today. And for those watching, thank you for watching us today. We've been speaking with Mary Wong today. She's the Optimal Life Solutions CEO and also the founder of the Balloon Principle speaking system. And she does fantastic workshops helping people speak out and also live your truth. So make sure you connect with Mary there. You can also check her out on her website. Is optimalcoaching.com.au. optimalcoaching.com.au. And if you've liked what you've seen here today, then make sure you give us a like wherever you're watching this video right now, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, and share the love. Also love to hear any comments as well, feedback. What did you think of the show? Do you have any speaking tips for us, or any tips on living your truth that you would like to share? Just pop some comments under the chat box here. Make sure you subscribe to Media Queen TV on YouTube if you haven't already, and join us on Media Mastery Show on Facebook as well. Like the page and connect with Mary Wong. You're extraordinary, Mary. Thank you once again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aldwyn. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon. Remember
Look forward to it.
Absolutely. Remember to speak out and live your truth. That's what it's all about today. Speak out, live your truth, and connect with Mary Wong. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Bye.